How often have you heard someone say the following sentence? Man, I do so well versus good players, but I'm so bad against all these bad players, these random scrubs. You put me up against old Jimbo, who's never played the game before in his life, and he just beats me up, dude. It's not fair, man. I don't know what's going on. I saw a Speedkick tweet about this topic, and he said, often used as fighting game cope, but as a clear sign of a big weakness to fix, which is the truth. If you ever say this sentence and it doesn't immediately follow up with, and here's my problem, then yeah, it's cope. You got the copium, you're huffing it right now. People say this all the time, right? What does this mean? You go to a tournament, round 1, you play a match, you win. You don't even think about it. Round 2, you play up against Daigo Umaharas. I'm playing against the GOAT, the beast. The game starts, you guys are dancing a bit. It's going back and forth. He closes it out. He wins the first round. You're dancing. You know, he wins the second round. Third round, fourth round, he ends up beating you, right? But it's like pretty close. It's all right. It's okay. Everything's going fine. You're like, well, I hit him a bunch. I got some combos. You know, I dropped some stuff. But man, I did pretty well versus Daigo. Like I was holding my own. I didn't die immediately. I was feeling good. So then you go to losers bracket. You're like, if I didn't do that bad versus Daigo, like surely my losers bracket match is going to be easy. And you're like, who do I play against? Johnny, 2x4 head. The guy locks in Manon. And you're like, Manon, this character sucks. You think I'm going to lose to this guy? He starts with the round start low. You're like, oh shit. And then he does dash up command grab. And then you lose the game in 30 seconds. And you say the sentence, man, why do I do so well versus good players, but not bad players? And it says the ability to punish bad play consistently is how you beat good players after forcing mistakes and is the difference between looking good and being good. Now, what does it mean when people describe bad players? Players who generally take high risk, low reward options. They play in a way that has extreme variance, right? Either they hit you and win, or everything they do doesn't work and they just die. Players who play in a really risky way can adjust and find a new play style. But generally, when people talk about bad players, they're talking about like the guy who shows up to the major, wears the same clothes for 3 straight days, and he's just there out drinking until 4 a.m. Every time you're going to the venue, he's leaving the venue with more alcohol. You're like, kind of, how is that possible? They're not talking about players who play in a risky way but win everything, because those players aren't bad players, right? To start with, how do most good players start by playing the game? By waiting to see what you do. Being like, okay, I'm gonna just walk back and forth, get an idea about what you're doing. Is this guy doing full screen, unsafe special moves? Is he jumping a lot? Is he dashing a lot? Is he just risking it all the time? And when like the answer is no, they're like, okay, well, then maybe I'll be a little bit more aggressive. I'll be active, I'll poke more, I'll change up my play style, see if that works. And maybe I'll walk and block and see how he handles that. And maybe if that doesn't work, I'll try to be more defensive and just like preemptively poke more, throw fireballs or do stuff defensively. Their opening play styles are not built to blow you out right away. They're built to like figure you out. And then, oh, okay, now that I understand how this person plays, I can just play this way and win, right? So that's why it feels like the matches with good players are so close, is because they're not trying to kill you right away, because if they did that, then their playstyle would maybe open them up to dying if you played in a really aggressive way. And good players can play lots of different playstyles and try lots of different things very quickly and identify the things that you struggle with or are bad at or are gonna do faster than players who are weaker. If you respect a player, if you think they're really good, you might not play against them in a way that's risky either, which usually, you know, you're not playing to win, you're playing to look good. You're trying to walk back and forth and play slow versus Daigo, and he doesn't kill you right away. But you're also not doing anything to win the game. You were just standing there not dying. And not dying to you is winning. You're like, cool, I'm actively not dying against Daigo. That's a win. So that's the starting problem, is that the players you're playing against are not trying to destroy you. They're trying to figure out how to beat you in a consistent way and then do that, right? This bad player that you're running into, this Johnny player, is just someone who's testing you in a different way. And his playstyle is not built to be good long-term. His playstyle is built to kill you right now and then go to the bar and drink with his friends. Johnny 2x4 head, he's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. You know what I mean? And if you are a really solid player, right, then you can run into someone like that, recognize what they're doing, adjust. Maybe, you know, you get hit by stuff, right? You probably get hit by that round start low and the command grab or whatever. But then once you see those things, you go, oh, I see. And then you figure out how they play, react to the stuff they do, or just play in a way that's very safe. Let them take risks, you know, punish the risks really hard, and then you kill them and then you win the game. But what ends up happening to most people is they don't think about the game that way. They think, well, I lasted a long time in this match against a good player, I must have been doing really well, even if they weren't doing anything. And the fact that they just lived for a while made them feel like they were good. When the reality is like beating weak players or random players or bad players or whatever you want to call them is a test of the foundation of your skills. It's easy to identify how to beat a player like that, right? You let them make their mistakes because they're going to obviously make those mistakes. When you play against the best players, the strong players, sitting there doing nothing will keep you alive for a while, but it won't force any mistakes. The age-old like, how come when I play him, he never drops that combo or he never misspaces that? But when this person plays them, he drops every combo, he misses this, he misses it. He plays so bad against other people, but he plays so good against me. And it's because you're not making the player make any mistakes or causing them enough problems that they would ever drop those things or miss those things or whatever, right? The other person's better than you, so they're forcing them to be uncomfortable and drop things or misspace things. It is funny. I mean, did you guys see the Nephew video where the guy was like, I didn't make any mistakes? And Nephew was like, okay. And he watched like a viewer's replays and the guy made like 11 mistakes around or something. It's really easy to just be like, oh, I got hit by a random thing. Like, yeah, I mean, that's not my fault. Like, I just got hit by something. Like, it's not a mistake, but like, yeah, dude, it's almost always the case. You have like problems in your game plan that people just are not exploiting, or when they do exploit, you don't recognize it yet. It's like most people who say this kind of stuff, your foundation or your basics are causing you problems to make you lose this way. The first thing you can do is every time you get hit, ask yourself, why did I get hit there? That's like a really easy place to start, because identifying grander mistakes like in your strategy, your movement, your decision making, that kind of stuff, that's like more difficult to do. You have to be a better player and understand the game better to do that. But to just understand like, why did I get hit? Like, that's like a pretty easy place to start. Well, I misplaced my move and I whiffed and then my opponent hit me, right? It's like, okay, we can start there. Your spacing was off, right? So you need to be closer or further, or you need to be not swinging that button from that range. You got to hit a different button or something, right? Why did you get hit by a jump in? Well, I threw like a fireball at this range. Okay, so maybe throwing a fireball at that range is like a bad answer, right? You should try something else. I tried to mash on defense and then I got hit. Okay, why did you get hit here? Well, I tried to mash on defense and then I got hit. Okay, why did you get here? Well, I tried to mash on Stop fucking mashing on defense. Please, for the love of God, just block. And then they're like, I guess, but like their character's so random and stupid and good, and it's not my fault. Learning how to challenge is very important. Learning how to mash on defense is very good. This is really common for people who are trying to get good. Your playstyle becomes like, okay, I'm gonna play the game the correct way. And you try to play really solid and good, and then you die to people who play random. The reason this is happening to you is because you're probably doing a lot of nothing. And you're bad at punishing people who take a lot of risks on their all-ins, and you're bad at identifying the types of risks people want to take, right? My advice is you should watch people who play really solid against random players. You should also play risky. You should just play risky for like a day or two or three or whatever. You should play the play style that you struggle to deal with and then see how that feels and then see how people punish you. Absorb that, you know what I mean? Be like, okay. And I mean, even really good players sometimes lose to players who are like not as good as them maybe, but like just take a lot of risks and surprise them. This happens in a lot of things. Actually quite common. You know, it's a great example. Hunt Showdown, when I play with duos or trios, the MMR I play with is like the highest MMR, right? So we play against 6 stars, which are like the best players. When you play solo, it places your MMR lower. And when you fight these players, the first game or two, I always die because I'm like, the way this person has been peeking this angle, like they're probably solo, like nobody's with them. And also they're probably not gonna peek this angle again because like they peeked it earlier. So they're gonna like rotate and probably go to this spot that's common. Things that are sensible for good players to do. So then what happens is they repeat the same angle again and I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm not ready for it. And then it turns out they have 2 teammates and their 2 teammates have been doing nothing for the last 10 minutes. They've just been sitting inside in a corner doing nothing while I fought one person. When you fight good players, if they know you're solo, then they'll just like push you together. When you fight bad players, they just like fight you one at a time over and over. And the other people just hide while this person fights you. You know, it takes a game or two for your brain to be like, I see. And they don't even think to themselves like, wait, if I just peeked from a different place or did this or changed up my strategy this way, the way they think about it is like, oh, if I just hit him, I would have been good. If I just aimed at him and shot him, I would have been fine. Listen. You know, I've been playing a lot of TFT and people who play those games tell me it's really easy to write off your losses as bad luck. But like in a game like fighting games, like the better player just wins. And I was like, you should tell that to them. I want you to go to a fighting game player and be like, yeah, isn't it great that in your game, when you lose, you're just worse than the other person? Like they just played better. Must be nice to not have any luck factor come in.